Hey, what's up y'all? Welcome back to another processing tutorial. In this video, we are going to build on the skills from the last one that introduced you to images and learn how to change the transparency of images using the tint function, as well as learning how to mask images using the mask function. And then we'll take a look at how to create like animated masks using pgraphics, which are just sort of like empty buffers of pixels that processing provides us with to kind of do a lot of fun things. So let's get started and look at the tint function, right? So this is what our sketch looked like from last time. Let's go ahead and take this out, and so that it just looks normal. And then let's add a tint function, right? It's going to be 255, and then this value here, we're going to put between 0 and 255, and that's going to change the transparency, right? And so if I put 255, that's going to be fully opaque, and if I put 0, it's going to be fully transparent. You'll be able to see whatever's beneath it. And you can see here, right, that there is fully opaque. This is fully transparent, right? I can't see it at all. And let's go ahead and say something like float alpha 0 equals, we don't need to actually initialize it because we're going to use that for a mapping. We'll say alpha 0 of our first image equals map mouse x, which we know goes between 0 and 640. We want it to be fully transparent all the way to, or sorry, fully opaque all the way to fully transparent. So we'll write 255 and 0. And then here in the tint function, we can say alpha 0, run the sketch. And now we should be able to see through to the background, right, as I move my mouse left to right. So this is really cool, right? We can, let's see, what's in my data folder? I'm pretty sure I've got another picture here, the spots.png. So I could come in here and I could say image 2, right? Image 2 equals load image. And I could say spots.png, and this one, let's just make it width and height. And for this to work for now, what we'll need to do is actually draw the second image first here so that it's underneath. So we'll say image 200. We'll run the sketch again. So now the second image is underneath of the first one, but we can't see it because the transparency is fully opaque. But as I start to move the mouse right across the screen, right, so the image, the tint is also affecting here. So if I want my tint of this first image to stay consistent, I need to say 255, like so. As I move my mouse left to right, then the second image that I'm drawing here, which is being affected by this variable alpha 0, will start to decrease. It'll become more transparent, and we'll see this image underneath, which I'm keeping at full transparency using this call to tint, fully opaque. We'll see that one come into view, right? And so you can see, you can kind of play around with like a double exposure photography kind of effect by mixing two pictures like this. This is already kind of on the way to a crossfade, right? So this one is fading the first one out, and the second one is fully visible the whole time. That has a certain look. You know, if you wanted it to be like a true crossfade, you would come in here and you would say, we would need like another variable. So let's say alpha 1, and I need to declare that up here, right? And then what I'll do is I'll map alpha 1 the same way, but with the range opposite, inverse of the other alpha value, right? So now as I move my mouse left to right, the second image down here, right, is going to go from totally transparent to totally opaque, and the butterfly image is going to go from totally opaque to totally transparent. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. You can see it's just slightly of a different kind of an effect. And I also have, you know, that black background underneath everything, which is making it kind of darken as each one becomes more transparent and they're stacked on top of each other. If I made this white, that would also kind of change what the crossfade looks like. Right, so you can see those changing those kinds of parameters is going to have a little bit of an effect on how the transition between scenes or images is going to look. But this tint function is going to give you all the control you need over that, and so you can start to kind of think about how you want to make transitions between different parts of your visuals if you're using more than one in a piece. Okay, cool. So let's now move away from this using tint, and we're just going to now focus on one image so that we can play around with masking, right? So how does mask work? Well, you can see I also put another picture inside of our data folder called mask, and if we open this up, I should get this picture, right? And so this is just a picture that's black and white, and with mask, it's going to let anything that is not black through based on how bright of a white color it is, right? So if it's totally black, you will not be able to see that part of the image that's getting masked, right? So anything that's black, you'll be able to see through the image to whatever's underneath of it. Anything that's totally white, you'll only be able to see the image. And then anything in between, it kind of acts like that tint did, right? So if it was like a dark gray, it'd be very dark, and the transparency of the picture at that dark gray point would be kind of, you know, very transparent. But if it was a little bit closer to white, then, you know, not fully white, but like a lighter gray, it would be more opaque, right? So the mask that we're using here is just black and white. So if I were to use the mask function on this image, right, and I were to say image2.mask, right, I would expect that if I were to use this image as the mask, that I'd only be able to see what's inside of the image right in this little circle in the very middle, and then everything else I would not expect to be able to see. I would just see right through it, right? Because the mask is covering it up. Okay, so first I need to actually have another image to store the mask image in. So I'm going to say this is my mask image, and then I'll say mask image equals load image mask.jpg. And these images need to be the same size for this mask to work, right? So I've resized image 2 here to be the same width and height. So I'm going to say mask image also resize to that same size. And now I should be able to use the mask function to mask image 2 with image 1. And then I will draw image 2 after it has been masked. And this is what we get, right? So now you can see that all I can see is the very middle of this picture, right? So the only spot where there was white in that mask image. And then the other parts of the mask, right, are black. And so I can see through this image 2, right? I can see through it to the background. And if I change my background back to 0, then you can see it's the same thing. I'm only seeing, right, what's in this white part of the masked image, and I'm seeing through the rest of it to the background, right? Okay, so that's how masks work. And this is pretty cool, and you can do some cool stuff with this. You know, you can draw black and white pictures that have more interesting shapes than just this little circle. But you might want at some point to, you know, have like an animated mask or a mask that you can change, you know, on the fly. And to do that, what we're going to do is use a P graphic. And a P graphic is basically just like another buffer of pixels that's off screen, right? And you can make it any size that you want. And for us, we're going to make it the same size as our display window so that we can use it as a mask, right? So let's look at how that works. What I need to do is I need to declare a P graphics variable, and let's just call this one PG, right? And then here what I'll do is I'll say PG equals create graphics, right? And then I need to tell it how big it's going to be, 640 by 480, right? So now I've created this graphic, right? And this is like a buffer of pixels. So this is like another display window that I can draw things to, right? So let's see how we're going to do that. Let's actually recreate this mask here, this mask picture with a p graphic, and then use it to mask our image. So let's say what we need to do is we need to say pg dot begin draw, right? So anytime you want to make changes to things that are on this p graphic, you're going to need to use the begin draw and end draw functions like so, right? And then maybe I say something like pg dot background 0, and then pg dot ellipse, and this was at width divided by 2, height divided by 2, and let's make this one just like 200 by 200, right? And I might also want to say pg dot no stroke and pg dot fill 255, so it's a white circle, right? So this will kind of create, this code will create this exact same picture onto this buffer of pixels, right? And if we want to see what that actually looks like, then let's get rid of this for a minute, and we'll also get rid of this. And then we can just say image pg 00. So right now I'm using this image function to draw the p graphics, right? This buffer of pixels, this second display window that we created, right? I'm using it to draw it to the screen. So all this stuff didn't actually get drawn to the screen, it got drawn to the p graphic. And now I am drawing that p graphic to the screen. So I should be able to run my sketch. Okay, now I've got something similar to that mask.jpg that I had before, just like a black screen with a white circle in the middle, right? And so now, if instead of, right, I don't need to draw this image to the screen anymore because I can already see what it looks like, right? Or we know what it looks like, rather. Instead of using the mask image, right, that JPEG that we loaded in at the beginning to mask our spots, right, image 2, which is spots, right? All I have to do is I use PG as the mask instead, and then I'm going to draw this image 2 to the screen after it's been masked. Okay, and so now you can see instead of using a fixed image as my mask, I've got this p graphic. And what's super cool about that is now you can use like any of the other skills that we've learned in any of the other videos or anything that you already know how to do to just draw a black and white image that's going to act as a mask, right? So something that we could do, let's make like a little flashlight simulation, right? So I want a flashlight that's going to follow around my mouse, right? So let's do this again where we just draw this and we don't draw this stuff so y'all can see what the p graphic that we're drawing looks like. So now I've got this, sketch basically where I'm just drawing this white circle wherever I move my mouse. And if I use that, instead of drawing that, p graphic to the screen, if I use it to mask my image, then I get kind of this fun little, flashlight simulator where it's like I can move my mouse to a different part of the screen and only reveal the little bit of the picture underneath, right, where that white circle is being drawn. So now you know how to use tint to change the transparency of images, and you also know how to use mask to hide and reveal certain parts of images. And you also know how to use p graphics, right, to draw, kind of dynamic masks that you can use. I'll also say that you can, instead of drawing masks to p images, you can actually draw your entire, sketch or your entire visual to a p graphic, and then draw a second one to another p graphic and use the same tint functions, right, as we were before to create crossfades between two visuals rather than two actual images, right? So that's just another way that you can use p graphics. They're super powerful, very, very useful things that are included with processing. Okay, so now y'all know how to change the transparency of images using tint. You know how to mask images using mask, and you also know how to create dynamic masks, right, using p graphics. So practice doing that, get familiar with it, have fun with it, and then tune in for the next video where we look at how to access each individual pixel in an image to do some more fun stuff with them. See ya.